Let's dive into the matchup. Let's get straight to it. What are you watching from OU's defense against TCU's offense, Ted?
Well, the interesting thing is with Hoover at quarterback, it has been a far more pass-centered offense. Just threw for over 400 yards against Baylor. They could do pretty much anything they wanted offensively. But the run concepts have been really basic, really vanilla with him at the helm. Obviously, after what happened with BYU and some of the zone read stuff and the quarterback run game sprinkled in, it makes you curious as to what TCU's what their game plan is going to be. Chandler Morris, we're all familiar with him. Super quick, super athletic, capable quarterback. He's been out. What is a sprained MCL, right, with the knee. Don't know what his status is. Played a little bit against Baylor, not much. But when you go back and watch their offense whenever he was the quarterback and compare it to Hoover at quarterback, you definitely see the difference. Chandler Morris is a factor in the run game, in the zone read game. Even in the running game, whenever he's given the football, you have to respect him, and you can tell the way defenses play as he carries out fakes or even he keeps it in the zone read game. It's definitely something that you have to factor in. So we have to be prepared for that. And even if Chandler Morris doesn't play, Hoover is, it's not his go-to, but, he's not a statue back there. He's a smaller, athletic. He can move around. He's got some quickness to him, but it's not something they live in with him. So I'm interested to see what they do, who they go with. Do we see both quarterbacks? I don't know. I think definitely they're going to mess with some of the zone read stuff. So we're going to have to be dialed into it and prove that we've been able to fix it. With the pass concepts that you see, they love to work the middle of the field. And you'll get dig routes. You'll get clear with the dig. You'll get an under route with the dig as a follow on top of it. A lot of different concepts work in the middle of the field. They'll work the bubble stuff and the arc stuff on the outside off of the the RPO look. The main threats, in my opinion, which I really like, Amani Bailey, who he's either knocking on the door of 1,000 yards or over 1,000 yards as a rusher this year, and really hadn't got a whole lot of publicity, with what Jonathan Brooks has done, with what Ollie Gordon has done. He's kind of slid under the radar, but he is a really dangerous back. Savion Williams, they like him on the outside. He'll just run like the little stutter fade. They'll throw it up to him, let him go over the top. He's 6'5", super athletic. They'll work him. He'll stutter and looks like he's running the fade and run the comeback. So they'll isolate him on the outside, typically on the backside of 3-by-1. He's the X receiver, and they love to work just some individual routes with him on the backside. And then Wiley, the 6'7" tight end, they'll hit him on seam balls. They'll hit him on digs over the middle. They'll work him into the concepts quite a bit. And like I said, recently they've been heavy pass and throwing the ball all over the yard with Hoover at quarterback. And, they always, this offense it's from the same family tree as what we do offensively, Levy's system, Heupel's system. And they're almost always going to work to where at the end of the game, you go to the box score, they're almost exactly 50-50 run pass. But even with that being the case, it's more pass game. It looks like they dedicate more time in the pass game preparation than they do the run. Run, Gabe, is a lot of just like inside zone, duo. They'll run some pin pull stuff to the outside. You'll get your counters. If you go back and watch with Chandler Morris, like almost always in the first series with Chandler Morris, you'll get the GT counter with the quarterback keep on the backside of it. And I haven't seen that nearly as much with Hoover at quarterback. So the offenses appear to me to look a little bit different with the two different quarterbacks at the helm. Offensive line to me looks pretty solid. I'd like to defer to you for your opinion on them. I know I've heard you talk about them in the past, like they're a solid group.
They're better than BYU's O-line.
Yeah.
Who just gave the Sooners all they wanted. And they've had some guys banged up. They've had to shuffle some guys, but it sounds like, just from what I've read from people that covered them, that group's going to be pretty healthy for this game. So yeah. I think you mentioned the QB run game, Ted, and Kendall Briles. That has been a big piece of his offense throughout his play calling career. I don't think it's been a big piece with Hoover at the quarterback position because Chandler Morris was still hurt and they didn't want to run him a bunch and get him hurt.
Yeah, makes sense.
It's the last game of the year. They absolutely have to win it to go to a bowl game. I think they are going to throw way more QB run game at OU than what they've shown in the last several weeks.
Yeah.
And it's because they feel comfortable that Chandler Morris is to a place where he can be effective out on the field. And you mentioned it. Hoover he's an athletic guy. He's not a burner, but I don't know who to compare him to, but I think he's similar. Like he has similar mobility to a Dylan Gabriel.
Yeah.
I think
I was thinking like Rocco Becht is kind of like.
Yeah, that's a good comparison. Like he's not going to turn your lights out as a runner, but down in the red zone, key third down and fourth down situations, he can go and make some plays with his legs. So after what just happened to Provo, I'll be shocked if they don't dial up some more QB run game, or at least read run game where the QB keeping the football is an option.
Yeah. And remember last year in our game against them down in Fort Worth, I mean, one of the main plays in that game was a zone read where we messed up the fit, like a 75-yard touchdown, right? Max Duggan down our sideline. So it's something that's in. I know that's a different coordinator and everything, but they're going to be watching that film as well. So yeah, I expect to see it. I expect to see a lot of it. I expect them to pull out all the stops, but I do like their pass game, all the over-under stuff. We were bad against the zone read against BYU. We were also horrible at linebacker in our zone drops, really bad. So, I mean, honestly, I feel like they're going to be looking at that film and licking their chops on trying to take advantage of the backers. I'm pretty confident that we're going to have a much better week at backer than we did last week, but we're going to have to be dialed in. They're going to have some stuff for us for sure.
I assume that you are not overly concerned with the tempo stuff because of how often Oklahoma's defense sees it in practice.
No, I got zero concern with tempo. Our game plan for that, as much as we practice against that in the spring, as much as we practice against that in training camp, and we still do some good on good stuff throughout practice every now and then. I've got no concern with it. Now, can it become an issue in the football game? Yeah. If you're screwing up run fits at normal tempo, you're going to screw them up worse at a fast tempo. That's how things go. So that's why we have to be extremely dialed in and be ready to roll. If you understand your responsibilities and the fits, the motions, the shifts, how to adjust what you're in, then the tempo really doesn't matter. So if I were TCU, I probably wouldn't run any tempo at all against Oklahoma. I would try and do what I do and shorten the football game, not try and go toe-to-toe offensively, but they may see it differently.
I think it's highly unlikely that they do that.
Yeah.
Just because that's not what they do. Now, you never know.
Yeah.
You never know. But anything else? TCU's offense, OU's defense?
No, Honestly, their main guys is really where now they've got good skill position guys throughout, but they run the offense through Bailey at back, at Wiley at the tight ends had a really nice year, and Savion Williams. Those are the guys that I'm worried about. Now you're going to get, the other guys are going to factor in as well, but those are the guys that create, some physical matchups, some size matchups that can give us some trouble.
The only other question I have for you is you've got the young quarterback in Hoover. Do you think BV is more likely to heat him up and bring a lot of pressure, or drop more guys in coverage and make him feel like there's 1,000 people in the back end of the defense?
I think he'll probably heat him up.
Okay.
For a couple of reasons. I think that we're best when we're moving forward as a defense and we're aggressive. And frankly, it's one of my biggest frustrations with this team is we are not good rushing 3 and dropping 8. Our zone coverage, for whatever reason, in the best pass defense you can be in, has not been good. It's been really bad. So now I do think ultimately what you want to get to is a mixture of both and constantly changing the look for the quarterback. And I think that's ultimately what Brent Venables is going to do. A mix between the two, changing the looks, not really ever giving him a moment to feel comfortable.
Anything else?
I think that's it.
All right, let's talk about what we're watching for from OU's offense versus TCU's defense. Let's start here. The structure, a 3-3-5 defense. Don't think they're going to come out in a different defense like BYU did. I think they're going to stick with what they've done all season long. And I think TCU is going to think they have the athletes to match up with OU at the skill spots. However, BYU did do a lot of things where the backers were walked up at the line of scrimmage, and that caused issues at times. So I will not be surprised if we see TCU in that 3-3-5 with those backers walked up, to see if OU has worked out those issues from a week ago. So the first thing to watch for, where is number 52? Dom Williams is a monster.
Mm-hmm.
He was their nose guard last year. He's still playing some nose guard this year. They're playing him out of position a lot. They're playing him in a 4 technique at defensive end. But this dude is an absolute load. And I am very interested to see where they play him the majority of the time. I think it would be a tough matchup for Rame if he's playing a head-up nose. I also, if it was me, if I was Joe Gillespie, their defensive coordinator, I would play him over Jacob Sexton. I would say, okay, young fella, can you hold up to this power? Because he is all of 320 pounds, and he's got a really good get off. I don't know where they're going to play him, but that's what I would do. And
quick comment on that.
Yeah.
Do you expect to see Sexton over Guyton?
It's what we saw against BYU, and I don't think Sexton did anything in that game to where Bill would think he doesn't still deserve the opportunity with the way that he's played. Now, you never know. I think Sexton – I don't think Sexton is as talented as Guyton right now, but he's doing a really nice job. I know it's crazy to think that Guyton is a potential first-round pick and isn't playing. It's strange, but people should know by now, Bill Bedenbaugh does not care about any of that. No, he does. That's not the best way to put it, but he's going to play the guy that he feels like is playing at the highest level right now.
Well, and it's fair to say that Guyton has first-round physical traits, but has not played first-round level football consistently throughout the season.
Completely fair to say.
Yeah. He's had moments, but he hasn't we haven't come on week after week and said that's what we've been looking for from Guyton. It's just been kind of like, right, honestly, below the level that we thought he would be to this point.
It's interesting. But yeah, I think they're going to be fine with whoever they play. I feel good about Guyton. I feel good about Sexton, but we'll see. I honestly would be surprised if Beatonbow mixed it up at this point in time. But if Guyton has a tremendous week of practice, yeah, I think Guyton's the better option at this point in time, just because he's a little physically stronger. But hey, man, I don't know.
Williams is going to be hell to block for whoever it is.
Correct. I actually, out of all the guys, Rouse is the best matchup for him. And Dom Williams has played a lot over the left tackle. Like when he's been playing defensive end, he's mostly played over the left tackle. So we'll see. I would kick him over to the right tackle, especially if it's Sexton, and see if he can hold up. But when you look at their defensive line, they're big. You look at the measurables, they look the part, man. I do think there's a pretty substantial drop-off between the first group and the second group, but they've got two redshirt freshman DNs, Oyewale, 97, and Ibukun, okay, Odu. These dudes look like they were made in a defensive end lab. And Oyewale he got banged up against Baylor, so we'll see what that's looking like. But I'd be surprised if they got a consistent pass rush. That has been a big issue for them this season, Ted. They have not been able to generate a ton of rush with that three-man front.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of been one of the main problems. I guess some teams are good at generating the rush with three guys, but it's so hard with the 3-3-5 defense. It looks so weird to me, and it really looks like everyone on the field is guessing, is what it looks like. like there's like, I'm used to where everything is supposed to fit a certain way, and this is like they play off of each other. The run fits are weird, and who's supporting at safety is weird. But I feel like, do you feel like our gap scheme is best against this? That's what it feels like it's been over the years, is whenever you face this, you don't have that hard edge, so you can get the pullers to kick out and get around and lead up a lot of times, and feel like you get some good hat on hat.
Yeah, I'm not sure I've seen a group of linebackers react so strongly to pullers in my entire life. So it's interesting. And the same with split flow. Jamoy Hodge, number 6, when he is on the backside and he sees pullers on a gap scheme, you have never seen a linebacker go flying over the top the way that he does. I mean, just blindly, we are running over the top to where I think these pullers are going to insert, and I'm getting there as fast as I can. So it's going to be really interesting on the counter and the one back power stuff, how they're going to handle that, because typically on those concepts, the front side double team goes to the backside backer. And I almost wonder if it's best to take the double team to the front side backer and then pull for Hodge when he's on the backside flowing over the top. I don't know if that's the way that they're going to do it, but it's something you have to think about. Now, you can do that front side double team, and then you can just know that you're going to, what I call, trap him out. Basically, he's flying over the top. You got to come off quick, and then you push him by, and the run comes inside of them. But I'm interested to see, with them knowing for the most part that backside backer is going to fly with the pullers, I'm interested to see how they handle that when they're running the counter stuff. And I'm also interested to see how they attack that, because it's very strange and it leaves a big void in the backside of that defense.
maybe time to break out the old fake power K-State play that we saw
The
several
fake
years
pull,
ago. The fake pull. Yeah.
I fully support that. I still remember when they ran that, and you and I were like, "What was that?"
Pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, um, if you can use that as a counter, now we do have the quarterback, pull it out the backside on all of those gap schemes as well. So, I mean, that's probably going to be the way they try and slow him down or counter it a little bit. I mean, ultimately, if you can get Hodge out of the fit and be working on a corner or a safety in the quarterback run game, that's a nice option because he's a killer.
Well, and that is it's kind of similar to what we said about TCU's quarterback situation and why they maybe haven't dialed up more QB run game here over the last month, but we don't know what's going on with the OU quarterback situation. So if it is Jackson Arnold, how much QB run game are you willing to dial up? Now it's the last game of the season, but Davis Bevel's your backup at that point. So how does that change the way that Levy wants to call things in the run game and how willing you are to, especially early in the game, to put Jackson Arnold in some of those situations? I don't know anything. I'd be really surprised if Dylan Gabriel played, just with, how things have traditionally gone with OU's training staff and how they handle those situations. But I don't know. Haven't asked.
Yeah, I don't know either. When you go with how it's traditionally been handled, you usually don't see guys a week later. If you go off of Venable's comments, sounds like, which, even if he wasn't playing, Venables would say the same thing. He's been very quick to say that, yeah, he's, we expect him to play, progressing. So it's hard to go off of that, I know, because, he's trying to give TCU, not give them any clarity, but I don't know. That's really the story of the game right now. Who takes that first snap?
Yeah. Obviously a massive storyline. We probably should have started with that in hindsight, but hey, we'll see. Some other run game thoughts. So when they want to crowd the box, and by crowd the box, I mean give you a 6-man box, they've got their 3 defensive linemen, and then their 3 linebackers get in a triangle. And you just really never see it. And Jaboy Hodge is a yard or two behind the other 2 guys at the point of the triangle. And it's interesting to watch how that group of backers fits. I'm not sure if they know what they're doing or not, but it does make it makes blocking that structure strange, like how you're going to target things, whether it's a zone run or a gap scheme run. You just don't see it. So very similar to the way that they play the backside of the gap scheme stuff. I'm just interested in what Beanbo and Levy come up with against that little look, because normally the guy that's in the front of the point will kind of spike it and then Hodge will go over the top. But they don't always do it. It's almost if they're just spinning a wheel and like, hey man, I'm going to do this time, you do that. It's strange to watch.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I've seen people do that before in a sound box. Like a lot of people used to do it in Bear. Now you would have like your extra player would be stacked behind. Oklahoma did it whenever Rex Ryan was here, and they called it Jet. It's pretty cool defense, and it was Ante Jones would be back behind there and just fly over the top and go make plays. So that's interesting. I mean, I guess you just, as an offensive lineman, you almost like you go to the area, not necessarily to the man, right? And I guess.
Yeah, that or you just run outside zone and run away from all that trash.
Yeah.
But that's really not something that we've seen a lot from the Sooners. Now, I do think QB run game can be pretty effective against this team. Now, how willing, if it is Jackson Arnold and you don't have Dylan Gabriel available, how willing are you to get to some of that stuff? I don't know, but K-State had success with it with Will Howard and with Avery Johnson. QB counter, QB pin pull, which is a play we've seen OU run, especially down in the red zone. Just simple zone read, the reverse read, whatever you want to call it, the reverse like power read play, Ted, where he's reading the defensive end with a wide receiver or the running back going wide, and if that defensive end stretches, then he follows the puller and runs power. So we'll see how much of that stuff that they get to, but I think you can have a lot of success with QB run game against this defense. I think zone insert, which is a play that OU has run a lot this season, I think it can be a really successful play, especially if you take the offensive lineman's track wider. So basically, you would call it outside zone insert. And Kansas State actually ran it with the backside tight end that's inserting on the line of scrimmage, which I know you despise, but they gashed them with it. And I think outside zone in general is a really good play against this football team because they play about as lateral as you'll see a defense play when they feel outside zone. And I just think you could have a lot of success with that. But other than that, run game wise, the only thing, they're really slow to react to speed sweeps, jet sweeps for whatever reason. So we'll not be surprised if Lebby gets a couple of those sprinkled in. I don't know if the fan base is going to like it or not, but I think they'll work. But other than that, that's about all I got for the run game. Pass game wise, they do not get much of a rush. Now you got to find where 52 is, and whoever's got him, you better be ready to anchor on a bull rush. You better be ready. But they don't really have anyone that really stands out as a pass rusher. Now, Oyewale and Ibukun Oke-Ode, I think I messed Oke-Ode up the first time, but I tried my best. Those guys, they show some flashes. They show some flashes on the edge, but just not a consistent rush. So they play a ton of man. I mean, they really trust their corners, especially number 2, Josh Newton. And it'll be interesting to see who he travels with because he typically accepts the challenge of the other team's best wide receiver. So will he travel with Farouk? Will he travel with Anderson? I don't think he'll jump in and play the nickel position and travel with Drake. Maybe, who knows? But OU's got to find a way to attack the other corner position for TCU. Number 24, Avery Helm, has been that guy quite often. I don't think he runs very well. And Lebby's going to find ways to isolate him and force him to show he can cover. And if it is Jackson Arnold, let's see how far he can throw that football. Because I do think that other corner spot for TCU is a weakness, Ted.
Yeah. Well, I think this is the challenge, right? And this is what we saw down the stretch last year. That's what we've started to see this year. Teams are going to challenge us, especially if we've got a backup quarterback in that's a true freshman. Man-to-man coverage, they're going to come up. They're going to say, you're going to have to make the throws to beat us in tight coverage. Can you do it? Because, we're going to be right here at the line of scrimmage. It's going to be hard to get the bubbles. It's going to be hard to run the jets. The running game is going to be a little bit more difficult. You're going to have to beat us with one-on-ones. I mean, that's the challenge. And I would say that it's definitely not what I would call a strength of our offense. I think it can be. I think we've got some really good individual players that can win some of those one-on-ones. If we can protect it and we can get some confidence at the quarterback spot and we can dedicate ourselves to trying to win some of those routes, I think we can. But for example, against BYU, I mean, in order to get those guys off of you a little bit, you've got to hit some of those deep balls. And, you know, I know we hit the one to Farouk and we missed the one to Anderson, but if you can hit on some of those, that's the only way that you're going to change that concept from a defense. If you're not hitting, like if you're throwing some comebacks for 6 yards or, you know, hitting some other routes, you're not going to get them out of it. The only way you get them out of it is if it becomes apparent that you cannot cover someone and they're going to keep throwing it down the field on you. So I think that's really one of the things that we do best. We often don't do it enough. We'll see if we do it this game.
Yeah, I'll be surprised with the way that they play defensively. I'll be surprised if Levy doesn't try to push it down the field early, right? And show that they can run by them and make those types of plays in order to back them off a little bit. And then you can throw the shorter stuff, the out routes, the comebacks, the hitches. I think you have to get them doubting their ability on the deep ball early. I think that's the approach. But yeah, man, it's not overly complicated. Wide receivers, you got to go win.
Mm-hmm.
Now there will be all kinds of rub routes, there'll be switch releases, there'll be all that type of stuff, but you got to play really physically. And we talk about it all the time on the line of scrimmage, but the same thing applies for wide receivers. You got to win your one-on-one battles. And that's what man coverage is. That's what they are going to challenge you. Can you beat me one-on-one? And that's going to be the story of the game for the passing game. Now, I did talk about how their linebackers really fly over the top on gap scheme runs. I don't know what it's going to look like, but you have to run a play action counter and throw a pop pass in the void of the defense. I don't know if it's Stogner. I don't know if you trust Fanuel enough to do that. I would assume it'll be Stogner, but you have to make them pay for playing the gap scheme stuff the way that they do. You just absolutely have to. And the only other thought I have in the pass game is I love the matchups. I love the structure that it creates when you get in 12 personnel and you throw the football. I don't know if they trust Fanuel enough to put him in some of those situations, but the way that it creates kind of a clear picture of one-on-ones across the board to let your wide receivers run and go win with speed. I really like the way that looks on tape. I just don't know if they trust a second tight end enough to get to a lot of that.
Yeah. Hadn't been something we've seen a whole lot this year.
No.
But I'm right there with you. I think that would be something good, and we'll see. You know, you kind of feel like at this point we're probably going to do what we've done, but I wouldn't mind at all changing some personnel packages against TCU for sure.
No, I'm with you. All right, let's get to call your shot. This first one, we asked you guys what's the number one thing you'll be watching for in OU TCU. This first one comes from Leroy Junkins, who says, play calling with how much the coaches trust Jackson Arnold and linebacker position after the BYU game. Yeah, agreed. I think those are the two main things to watch. If it is Jackson Arnold, which is what I'm assuming it's going to be. But yeah, Venables was he was rather open with the linebacker struggles in the BYU game.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, and he defended the defensive line, and, you know, he said, you know, they didn't play great against Kansas, you know, had some moments, or didn't play great against Oklahoma State, but he's like, that was not the case in this game. This one is on the second level. And I agree. And I think they played a bunch of guys and everyone had their hand in it. There were some guys made some good plays for sure, but there was a lot of mistakes that cost us a ton of yardage in the run game. And you heard me mention it earlier. It wasn't just run game. We were not good in the passing game either. So we've got to have a much better game at backer. There's no doubt. Hopefully, Stutzman is healthier than he was a week ago, and he's been able to practice and be more dialed in. And hopefully, we've got we solidified the Mike backer position, because we threw a bunch of different guys there last week, and no one really played great.
I hear you. Now, this other one comes from Joe Lerner, who says, how loud the Stoops call will be for senior day. That guy became a dude in his time at OU. You forget about the senior day stuff. That adds that emotional element to everything. And yeah, you always want to send your seniors out the right way.
Do you have any feeling on some of the guys that, for senior day that aren't seniors, that often go out there because they know they're going in the draft? Anyone on the team you feel like we may see that from?
Well, I think three main guys have interesting decisions to make. Tyler Guyton, it seems like he's going to be gone to me. Just with some of the projections, the talent that he's got. Do I think he would benefit greatly from another year of college football? I do. I really do. I think he could go from, a late first round, early second round type guy to a top 10 pick with another year of college football. And there's a lot of money that comes with that difference. But you're being projected in the first round. It's hard to say, you know what? I want to go to class some more,
Right. Oh,
but
I get it.
The three other main ones, Billy Bowman, Danny Stutzman, and then Jalil Farouk is an interesting one. So I'm not going to react strongly either way. If those guys do or do not go through senior day, I can't imagine they would, but I guess you never really know.
Yeah. I think you may see that from a guy that sometimes everyone knows that someone's going to the NFL, right? And that's typically whenever you would see something like that. And I don't think we have anyone that is just a 100%, your time here is done. You need to move on. You're playing at that type of level. I don't think we have anyone there right now.
Everyone knows how much I like Guyton, how talented I think he is, what I think his ceiling is. It would be a little strange if you go through the senior day stuff. You're like, I'm going to the NFL, and then you don't start in the game.
Yeah.
That would be, I'm guessing that would be a first. And I don't know, but when a lot of people are saying you're going to be a first round pick, I don't know if you have much of a choice. So
yeah.
we'll see. But yeah, other than that, I don't know. I don't think any of the defensive linemen that could come back for another year have done enough to say, oh, I'm going.
Do we have a defensive lineman that could come back for another year? I went through it yesterday. We've got, I think, 9 defensive linemen and edge guys that are in their last season. That's a lot.
God bless the transfer portal. Start pulling the NIL funds, people. Got to go grab some defensive linemen.